back for yet another episode, and let's get right into it. Today we're joined by, I guess the best way to describe John Rallo, and most of you already know who he is, but he is the godfather of Maryland MMA. He's the man that made MMA, mixed martial arts, legal and prosperous in Maryland. Worked very hard for that. So let's get right into it. John, how you doing today?
Good, good.
Thanks for joining us, especially considering the circumstances, man.
Yeah. Well, we got nothing but time right now, so
Yeah, unfortunately, and part of that is because of the corona outbreak, you did have to cancel one of your two signature events, and that is Shogun Fights held at the Royal Farms Arena. Just talk about the damaging effect it had, not only on you personally, but your fighters as well.
yeah. Well, myself, the fighters, and as you know, the ancillary businesses. You guys cater the event for us. The hotels. We get probably spend four grand or so a show on hotel rooms for the guys. Our fans also get hotel rooms there. The bars and restaurants after the show. It sucks.
Yeah, I think you're missing the surrounding restaurants because
Yeah,
people
yeah.
go to places like Kona Grill, for example, Capitol Grill.
Yeah, before
for
the
dinner
show, a
before the
lot
show.
too.
Of course, they go to Power Plant afterwards.
Yeah.
For the
It's
after
for the
party.
last 10 years, we've been doing the after parties there. It was, you kind of saw it coming. I held out for as long as we could. Frank did not really want to do it either. The fighters, I can tell you, they all wanted to do it. I would call the guys and talk to them. But the more we talked and the more you could see that it was starting to affect their ability for their fans, because they were like, oh, I don't know, with the stuff going on. So that's a big roll of the dice. I lost enough, and if I would, the longer you know how it is, you do enough events, the longer you stay in, the more it's costing you on, promotional materials, advertising, just the things you have to do to get ready, insurance,
Production.
yeah, all these kind of things. So, I just finally, Frank and I talked, and really the governor really put the kibosh on it when they started limiting the amount of people that could go to the events. Then you saw a company like Live Nation cancel all their events. So, we knew we were done. I took this one in stride as best as I can. Next one would be July 18th down at MGM. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed, that this thing lets up. Hopefully in the end of April, the 30th, we can start to phase things back open and give us enough time that we can do that show. But, it's pretty crazy. I mean, we've never had anything like this happen before. This is the first time that I've had to cancel an event. We couldn't even postpone because the only date that the arena had available for me, I mean, as you know, they're booking shows all the time. So we would have had to do it in June. And with the show at MGM already contracted for July 18th, they would have stepped on each other. And probably, now I'm splitting fans up between those, between those two shows. And now you have two shows that are a loss. So it was better just to cut the losses and move forward. And honestly, a lot of these guys are going to be on, we just kind of push the fights to the next card. So in one aspect, some of the money I spent, I'll be able to roll over to that next show. But some of these guys, you won't be able to do that with, for their lives. These guys could have something that conflicts with that date. And right now, man, the casinos and everything are closed up too. So I'm, we're just all waiting to see how this thing rolls out.
Yeah, and the fighters as well, they're training 3-4 months at a time for this one fight, right? So
And
to have that stripped from them, it's got to hurt them, not only financially, but physically as
yeah,
well,
yeah.
right?
Well, think about this. They closed the schools. So these guys, if they had the fight, couldn't even train for the fight right now. So, and it's kind of crazy. I mean, we're both Rogan fans. He's a buddy of mine, and he had on an infectious disease doctor. And when Joe asked him what were the things you could do to prevent it, the number one thing was exercise. And, but we closed all the gyms down. So
Yeah.
now, people are going to have to, figure out, and you can, how to do things at home. But, it's kind of, ironic, hey, the number one thing to do is exercise, but we're going to close all the places where you exercise.
Yeah. Have you seen, I guess, the only live non-pre-scripted sport going right now is the UFC.
Yeah.
They're doing the empty arena, which I think is going to work very well for the brand as long as they can get the fighters to a place. Did that cross your mind at all?
Well, our model's a little different. Dana can be successful doing that because you and I are going to buy that pay-per-view and watch the fight anyway. When they do a live event, they do, we'll just say $1.5 to $2.5 million at the door, depending. And, that might pay their payroll. So, they really make their money in all their other aspects. And for us, we're a regional promotion. Our guys are going from us to the next level. So we don't garner a pay-per-view audience like that. So if we were to do an empty arena thing and we're paying all the fighters, that should just be a straight loss right out of my pocket because we wouldn't have the ability to monetize at the door. The gate for us pays for the show and everything. So with no gate, you really can't do a show.
Yeah, it's really tough. Let's talk about the show. Let's talk about better times. Most people listening or watching that aren't familiar with the Shogun product, they maybe see these regional MMA shows at 2 a.m. on Comcast or NBC Sports, and they see these rinky-dinky, shows. Just tell the people from A to Z, because they can hear it from me and it's one thing, but you can probably explain it a lot better, just how First Class Shogun is run, how long it's been going on, and, all the steps that you take to make sure that, in my opinion, it's the best bang for the buck entertainment-wise in the state.
No, I appreciate that. Man, it was a long process. I thought when we started the event, for me, I'm in a unique position compared to like other promoters. And the reason I say that is like I competed in the sport as an athlete. I've coached in the sport and I'm a fan of the sport. So I've been on smaller level shows behind the scenes, seeing what's going on, how do they treat the fighters, how they put them in, 80 guys, in a locker room, no ice, no water, no anything, no room to work out. You get to see the production, how things are done. And Frank honestly was real instrumental.
Frank Remish.
Yeah, Frank Remish he's the GM of the Royal Farms Arena. He's the one that got me to go there. When Frank first asked me, he called Ira, and Ira told him he should call me Ira Reynes. So Frank and I talk, and I told him no. I said, this place is too big. I'll lose my ass here. And he says, no, I'm telling you, we can make it work, this and that. And, then they laid the bills for the place on me, and I go, yeah, you can get rid of that because that's not happening. So, he kept at it. He was persistent. Him and I, they had a sister property up in Pittsburgh, and they had an event at a Pittsburgh arena. And they cut the arena almost in half for this thing, but it was cool. The setup was cool. The show ran horribly slow. They kept doing these giveaways in between rounds and all these kind of things, but the setup I thought looked pretty cool for an arena vibe. So I talked to some of their providers up there because I liked what they did. And then I started looking local, because I would rather have a local team here doing our work. Vance, I already knew, and Mike from Sheffield, they had me do some other things for them promotionally. So we use them for the editing of the TV show and all. They help me now design my posters and my credentials, and they do the commercials, for us. They do pretty much everything on that end. And then really Tim Conder is my other right-hand man, and Tim, he's the production manager. So my lighting, the sound, the video screens, like the way the show appears, especially on TV, Tim's a guy who really helps me with that. And this guy works all over the country. He runs a lot of people around here. I'm sure know Moonrise. Moonrise is his personal event that he does down at Pimlico every year. But, when Virgin Fest is here, he was setting up. When YouTube was playing at the stadium, they were setting it up. So, this is a guy who does top of the line work, and I'm fortunate to have him, as part of my team. Anytime we go to a new place, him and I go down, look at the room, and then we figure out what we need. And, he's been great. So, when we got to the arena, what we did was we put that curtain up, on the first kind of hook that we could, and it blocked the stage out, because you would have that big hole in the stage sitting there. So it's a little off center the cage where we set it up, but it really shows nice. And again, Frank was the guy, because he asked me, he goes, how many people you think you're going to get to a show? And my guess, man, I was like, I don't know, 2,000-3,000. I go, that's a giant regional show. I said, but that's not an arena show. And he told me, he says, we got to be good friends. He goes, when I wanted to do business with you? He goes, when you told me you were going to do 2,000 or 3,000 people. He said, because I knew you were honest. He said, everybody that sits across the table from me, every time I ask that question, what do they say? Oh, we're going to sell it out. We're going to sell it out. And they never do. He goes, so I knew right away you were shooting straight. So we worked out a deal that was very helpful, that made me, he lowered my risk because he knew I was worried. And, man, we've been there over 10 years now. So
yeah, but you pretty much did sell the first one. As I remember, I sat upper deck at the first one.
Yeah. Well, the first one was crazy, as it should be. It was really crazy. And, and then it leveled into where, dude, we're averaging between, I'd say 4,000 to 5,000 people a show. If you're doing 5,000 people down there for a regional show, and and I was part of a bigger group called Alliance for a little while, and I got to meet promoters from all over the country. There was only one guy doing the shows the size that we were doing, and it's myself. So all these other guys were like, they were in awe. They were like, man, this is amazing. Even guys that were doing shows in Atlantic City, the casinos are smaller spots. We do 5,000 at the arena. I sold out MGM last summer. It's 2,500. Live is 2,500, if you set up there. So it's, the arena show is really an anomaly among, regional promotions. So, I've been real fortunate. The arena staff is amazing. They treat me like I am their boss, if you need something, you can call them up. We're all friends. I give them stuff for Christmas. Mm-hmm. So, but I do appreciate how they treat me and the work that they do for us, So, yeah, for me, like we were getting to, that's the arena side of things. Then you look at the back end for the fighters. We do, I have fruit in the room, so they have something decent to chew on. We have water back there for them. We have ice back there for them. We have mats on the floor so that they can warm up and things like that. We keep, it's basically friends and family that are running the background for me as far as the locker rooms and stuff like that. So, we'll have 2 guys or 3 guys, depending on how many locker rooms there are in the back, and they stay with them. And if a coach needs something, they'll go get it. If they need me or the athletic commission, they'll go get it. That way the coach doesn't have to get up and get out. Little things people don't see. We do we have closed circuit TV in the back for them. When you go to these smaller level fights, and I'm talking, Binky won Ring of Combat up in New Jersey years ago. Ring of Combat's put 100 guys into the UFC. They've been around for 20 years. Lou's a great guy. But your locker rooms are like downstairs, walking through this thing. If I need to know what fight's up, you got to run upstairs, look, run back downstairs, and you're trying to get a fighter prepared, and you're back and forth. So I try to take care of all those little stupid things so that when they're here, all they had to do was focus on the fight. The hotel's right across the street. You don't have to shuttle. They can park once. Once they get here, they're in the hotel. They can walk to go where they need to go. So all these little things, we tried to take care of. And then production-wise, we're always tweaking lights, sound, the screen. Remember when we first started, we had 2 smaller screens. Then we went with that giant screen, which I was worried, but it turned out better when we do it that way. So, a lot of little details that we do to try and enhance the fan experience, but also the fighter and the coach experience.
Yeah, and you pretty much just touched on everything that you do for the fighters. But me, as a spectator, as a fan, the things that I noticed that, you glanced over that I can think of right away. Number one, the demographics amazing. You have families there. It's very reminiscent of like a WWE show, which really shows you that your product transcends, age, income, race, sex. It's for everybody.
Yeah.
The second thing that I definitely notice is the quality of the fighters. I would say, and you could probably vouch for this a lot more than I can. A step, is it the AAA to the UFC?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, Sadiq Yusuf, who's one of our guys, he's undefeated in the UFC. He's like 5-0. Dan Ige, he lost his first one. Binky actually fought Dan one time on the card, and Dan is now, I think he's 4-1. Like he's won 4 or 5 in a row, and he just beat a contender. Carl Roberson, another guy that fought for us a few times, and Carl is like 4-2 in the UFC now. So there's multiple guys that are, that come through. So yeah, you're going to see Tucker Lutz, right now. He's, people wrote up an article, top 10 guys to be on the Contender Series this summer, and Tucker was one of the guys. Skylar Suto is one of our guys coming up. Absolutely, that guy's going to the next level, I believe. So we definitely have some some solid fighters in the area. Now that it takes time to build that kind of talent too, you know what I mean? So, in promotion terms, I mean, we've been around 10 years, but it's not really that long. So now guys see the show as a kid. They've been kind of coming to the show and then, I want to be, I want to fight. So these new kids coming up and they're not just a specialist in one area or the other area. They're training everything and they come up and they're more well-rounded. So, I think you're going to see a new generation of fighters. And the other thing I forgot to mention, John, like we used to be on Comcast. Well, I just got a deal with Stadium, who's owned by Sinclair Broadcasting. And we're on nationally now, and Stadium. I can watch it on my phone. You can watch it on your iPad. You can, you can go on Apple TV, Roku, Hulu, and watch this thing. So now, instead of being in like 4.5 million homes, now we're going to be in over 40 million, and that's not counting the apps and things. That's just their TV stations they own across the country. So locally, like Baltimore County, it's channel 210 on like Comcast or Xfinity. So, I'm excited about that because the deal's financially better for us as well. So more exposure for the sponsors and costing me less to be on now because they really like the content.
Yeah, and then we'll move on to some other stuff, but some final things that if people are listening and they've never been to a Shogun show, I really recommend it. Other things are you have surprise appearances from guys like Ortega and Cowboy Cerrone, which once again shows you how legit it is because these guys wouldn't show up if it wasn't.
Nah, for sure.
You have Tito's doing the VIP lounge. Of course, we cater it. So you go way above and beyond for everybody, whether they're getting, the cheapest level ticket or the highest one to make sure they get
and I
that
try to
premium
tell
experience.
people too, not just because you're sitting here, but, I always tell people, we got this VIP party and it's not hot dogs and hamburgers.
Yeah.
I have Jimmy's told people, these guys are doing sushi bars there and stuff like that. So, Valentino's did a great job before you guys took it over. So, the people are used to a high level of service at the dinner as well. And, you should plug that as well. It's not, people come, the ticket costs money, but you're getting Jimmy Seafood crab cakes.
Yeah.
We're
definitely very appreciative of the opportunity. And a lot of the people are trying it for the first time, and then we'll see them in the dining room a week later.
Nice.
So let's talk about, obviously you do Shogun, and that's your baby, but, your day-to-day job is ground control. And I think a big part of ground control is getting the kids in there. And talk about the importance of MMA / martial arts to the youth, especially during, the modern day era of,
The bullying
physical
and
education
everything.
not being every day in schools.
That's a fact too.
And talk about, you've mentioned them a few times, Binky, and the quality of instructors that you have at ground control.
Yeah, well, anybody that has been to Shogun and knows who Binky is knows that we have a kids program because 80 of them would walk out with him to the cage and stuff. So, but yeah, the kids, look, martial arts training, and I'm not just going to say, hey, you have to bring them to ground control. There's good in all martial arts. Anything that you can get your child to do other than sticking his nose in an iPad or on, Xbox is a good thing. The exercise aspect, the physical fitness aspect, the discipline aspect the mental toughness that it develops because the kids are dealing with adverse situations, when they're wrestling and training in class. So, Binky is amazing. I mean, he works with troubled children in the daytime, almost like a school like Hickey. It's kids that have been in trouble, maybe been to jail, they're reintegrating back. And he's been doing this basically his whole life. So he has incredible amount of patience. I mean, he's the type of guy, if the kid's doing bad in school, he may pay a visit to that kid's home to talk to them with the parents about the importance of your grades. Right now, with the problems, the schools are all closed, obviously. Right now, him and Tony Hines, there are two kids instructors. There are main two, and they're rotating days doing online exercises with the kids. Showing techniques online.
So how does that work?
It's been pretty cool. Well, with they've been doing it for members. So if we have a Facebook set up that's a member only page, and then they've been going on at 5 each day, and they get on for about a half hour, 40 minutes. They might do some individual drills. They might do some techniques. Like Binky literally had a pillow. Like I was told him if he wanted to do it at the school, we would do it. And he was. I mean, it was small. I thought it was brilliant. He goes, nah, man. He says, I have a routine I want to do, and I want to do it from the house. He goes, so that they can see I'm doing it at the house, so they can do it at the house. And I was like, man, that's brilliant. I said, cool, then we'll do it that way. And like we were talking yesterday, and he goes, man, I was tired after I did the workout. But he's Binky's really a special guy. We've known each other since we were children. And I'm talking like 7, 8, 9 years old. He played football at Dundalk. My dad coached him. My dad was a kind of father figure to Binky. If you ever talked to him about that, I don't know. But, his dad wasn't in his life like that. He got close to my dad. And I'm telling you, over the years when he had issues, he would call my dad and talk to him about stuff. So, it was cool when Binky and I reconnected. I was already into this stuff, and it was Wildwood, New Jersey, and in the the grappling side, they would have professionals come in, for spectators in these big tournaments. And I was, myself and Jamal was like Team Henzo Gracie versus Team Balance at the time. And we went, and we wind up winning this thing. But anyway, I'm walking through. It's like at the Wildwood Convention Center, and the tournament's going on, and I see Binky. I'm like, Binky? And he goes, yeah, man. I go, what are you doing here? He goes, he said, well, I'm competing. He goes, what are you doing here? I go, I'm one of the super fights later. And he goes, are you serious? So he did his thing. Later on that night, I did my thing. He came to the school, which at the time was in an aerobics room at Canton Club with Tim Whitman. And, he started coming, and once his contract was up where he was, he's been with us full time ever since, so it was crazy how our paths crossed back again after high school,
Yeah, I think full time would be a disservice to how much time and effort he puts into the program too.
Yeah, man, he's really, and I'll tell you what, with the new school, I mean, we built a new location and everything. Really, we upgraded, so we moved a location, and it's a much nicer spot. But he's really stepped up. Like I have to admit, he wants to really grow the program. He's becoming more involved with the business side of things, where before he just kind of sat back. So, Bink's doing a great job.
If parents are watching this and they want something for their kids to do right now while they're stuck at home and they're not going to class, what's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, I would tell them either. If you go to groundcontrolbaltimore.com is the website. There's a pop-up box there for a free week of classes, and my brother, Jamie, is the one that will respond to that. The phone number that's on there is actually my phone number, so if you call, you're going to get me. And the email address is info@groundcontrolbaltimore.com, and you can email us, and then I'll be glad to, answer any questions they have and help them out.
Big question that I have for you, and I'm sure you get asked this a lot. The success of ground control in the multiple schools, obviously, as we touched on earlier, the crazy success of Shogun and the amount of people you're able to put in there. You've traveled the entire world. You bodyguarded for every big name there is. You competed in MMA. You could have left Baltimore a million times. What makes you want to do everything that you do here in Baltimore? Because we both know as business owners,
This
it's
is
not the
tough
easiest
here.
place to run one.
It isn't exactly a business-friendly state. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think I obviously, I mean, people that are from Baltimore have a pretty ferocious loyalty to Baltimore. It's like a similar question. Like I say all the time, there's guys with property that'll hit me up and say, "Hey, you want to do a school in Hunt Valley?" or "Hey, you want to do a school over here?" And the school, we have one in Columbia, one in Owings Mills, and one in Rosedale. I'm at Rosedale, which is probably the lower demographic of all three, but it's where I'm from. I'm from this side of town. I grew up in Hollandtown, and played little league at Eastwood, and I played football little league at Dundalk. So, to me, it's kind of my way to give back. Like I like to be here. I like the people here. This is how I grew up, and and like I said, it's kind of a way to give back too. Who knows, there's plenty of guys that've been in that place that I don't even where they pay and not paying. You as long as they were staying out of trouble, you would let them
Yeah.
stay in there. And yeah, I think for the longest time, I have a loyalty to the town. Henzo tried to get me to move a ton. You know what I mean?
Is that New York, New Jersey
Yeah,
area?
yeah,
Right?
up into where he's at and everything. And I'm like, man, I'm set up here. I've been here my whole life, so I'm gonna go someplace else and try to restart, even though I have all of his people. And Rogan was the same because he asked me this before, and I said to him, man, I'm not trying to start all over someplace else. I said, and I'm pretty loyal to where I'm at. And I said, plus who knows? I come out here, I'm not John, I'm not John Rallo now. And he goes, man, look, you'll do fine wherever you go. He goes, you're smart, you're charismatic. He goes, and that's what you need. He goes, you're a good person. He says, you'll be successful wherever you go. But, I still feel like I need to be here, and then, obviously I met Angel and she had a son. That's when touring and all pretty well stopped for me because I loved her, I loved him, and it's hard to go on the road for 6 months, 8 months, and how do you have a relationship like that? It's next to impossible. So, as my paradigm started to shift, I was like, all right, now I'm going to be home more. That's when I really did start focusing on getting the show up and running to supplement that money. So. And that's how we wind up getting to that. Now, I'm tied down here. I'm married. I'm married to Shogun and I'm married to Ground Control. Yeah. So, it's but it's all good, man. I've thought about it at times, but I mean, this is my home, and this is if I can help give back, if I can help improve the community, by helping kids and helping people do the right thing and get in shape and be able to handle themselves in these crazy times, then it's something that I like to do.
Yeah, and I know I speak on behalf of Baltimore when I say we're very thankful to have you because
thanks, man.
I'm sure those parents, when they leave that kid at Ground Control for an hour, feel very confident in the people that are handling them as compared to maybe another school out there, or if you weren't here, where they would be at that point. So,
yeah, man.
Thank you, and thank you on behalf of the restaurant industry too, because I know places like Capitol Grill and Kona, which I mentioned earlier, are very thankful when the show's there.
Hell yeah.
John, I know you're a huge Ravens fan. We're both big Ravens fans. They've been pretty busy despite everything going on, making moves. I remember at Fit Tech and Powerhouse, you would hold court.
Right.
I would listen to your conversations, and they would 9 times out of 10 turn out to be pretty successful predictions. How do you feel with what seems to be the Ravens building the trenches back up?
Man, look. The line wins championships. We all know that. And I'm hoping they build the center of the O-line back up too. Marshall Yanda being gone is a big blow. Obviously, Lamar makes a lot of those guys look better than they are. But, the O-line is the most important thing. D-line wise, you saw Derrick Henry. A lot of guys ran on us. I didn't think it was just the D-line, though. It was defensive end play wasn't that great. And I just thought, look, I like Josh Bynes. I was happy when they picked him up. We started playing better when he was in the middle. I just think he's a step slow, to get outside on those off tackle and sweep plays that we really, like the 49ers ran all over us that day, and that's all he did, off tackle and get the corner. They didn't run anything up the middle. Nobody ran up the middle really on Pierce and Williams. So it was always the tackle or the edge where the big plays seemed to happen. So, look, anytime you can get a guy like Calais Campbell, you know how excited I was when I heard that they were going to get him. I mean, this guy's he's a possible future Hall of Famer if he keeps playing the way he does. A consummate teammate, another great locker room guy, another guy that's going to lead by example. If you see him in them wired segments, this guy's 100 miles an hour the whole game. He's talking. Can we cuss on this?
Yeah, man.
He's talking shit on the sidelines and everything else. So, I was super excited. Brockers, I thought, it was a good signing, but hey, if they don't think his ankle's straight, we don't need to give a guy $30 million whose ankle may not be straight. And a high ankle sprain on a 300-pounder is different than a high ankle sprain on a wide receiver or somebody. So, we wind up getting Derek Wolfe. Honestly, I'm happier with the move because he not only is a solid run defender, but he's a much better pass rusher. So now you got Campbell and Wolfe who can play inside or out and can give pressure. Now if Judon stays, and if he doesn't, go get Clay Matthews or somebody who's going to cost you less money and probably give you the same production. Then you have, Calais in the middle. Then you have Wolfe in the middle. I mean, if Bowser takes another step forward, he had 5 last year.
Ferguson.
I forgot about it. And honestly, I thought Jalen Ferguson, as the year went on, played better. So give him another year to develop. He's a young kid. And, I think, another kid. And inside linebacker, I'm waiting to see. We had this kid, Ataro Alaka. Yeah. And in the preseason,
they stashed him on the IR.
Yeah. In the preseason, he looked like he would come and hit you like a ton of bricks. So maybe that kid can come and contribute. I'd love to see a vet inside, unless they really think Queen or what's the kid's name from Oklahoma, Murray, that everybody's looking at. So we'll see what happens. But right now, I'm happy with the moves. I'm happy with, look, you use 2 5th-round picks to get Marcus Peters and Calais Campbell. And one of those picks was for a kicker who never even played a down, basically. So, DaCosta, I like that he's more aggressive personally because, I know all of us would sit back and look, Ozzy's he's a Hall of Fame GM, but we would be like, God, make a move, man, do something.
That's Brian.
And DaCosta, he goes out. If he wants something, he goes. He's got a plan. He executes. He's not sitting back. He did a good job gathering us up some draft picks. So whether they're going to use them and just have a lot of talent, or whether they're going to trade up and maybe get a player that they have their eye on, I've been very, very happy so far with the way they've been doing things, and I like the makeup of the locker room. I was worried when Suggs, and all these guys were leaving. Who's running shit?
Yeah.
Who's keeping?
And then when Tony Jefferson got hurt, too.
Yeah, but man, Ingram, that was the one thing that's the guy I wanted. So I was happy they got him. But if you notice, when he left New Orleans, everybody was like, man, damn, we're losing him. And to a man, they all said how important he was in the locker room. So that team chemistry, man, people say, chemistry. Bullshit. This is a team sport, especially football. One guy fucks up, could be a touchdown. So, the more chemistry you have, the more you want to play for the man next to you, the better they're going to be. I just believe that.
Yeah, and you touched on Eric's aggressive ways, and they have so many draft picks this year compared to other years. The one thing the Ravens hate doing is cutting their own draft picks.
Yeah.
I can't see the team adding 9 or 10 rookies to a team expected to compete now, so I fully expect him to trade up in the first round, second round, maybe third round, or trade into next year. There's no way they're taking 9 kids out of this draft and putting them on this roster next year, so it'll be exciting to watch.
Yeah, because I don't think there's tons of space, you know what I mean? But they better go get some inside linebackers, and they better go get some interior offensive linemen. I'd like to see a center, and I'd like to see a guard. And look, they know these guys much better than we do. They see them every day. Maybe Powers, maybe Bozeman, maybe Makari, will screw up, come back. Maybe one of these guys will take a step forward and be able to fill it in. But, it wouldn't break my heart if Osemele or somebody like that came back. And, imagine, Lamar and company running behind that road grader again. You know what I'm saying?
And then traditionally, you can get elite middle linebackers, interior linemen, or safeties towards the end of the first round, which is where the Ravens are picking now. Of course, that's where they got Ray Lewis. That's where I think Ben Grubbs, was late pick. Ed Reed, of course, late first round pick. So, I think they're sitting pretty. And as a fan, it's exciting to not have a glaring hole.
No, I'm definitely excited. And you know what else? I read, I don't know if you saw this, I was flipping around Bleacher Report, and it was in an article. It said why Ndamukong Suh didn't come here. And apparently him and Harbaugh have some friction during the Rams game. And apparently Harbaugh got over it, but I guess Sue didn't. So that was one of the reasons he left. But what was intriguing to me was down the article, they talked about Derek Wolfe. And Derek Wolfe almost didn't come here. And do you know why?
No.
Flacco talked down on the organization to him. That's what was in that article.
Wow.
Yeah. So I sent it to Ed Norris when I saw it. Maybe they can talk about it tomorrow or whatever. But I was like, interesting. You know what I mean? That now they said after he talked to DaCosta, Ozzie, and maybe Harbaugh, but he said after he talked to the brass, he was ready to sign. But before that, he was hesitant because of apparently Flacco didn't give us a glowing review. Where Tony Jefferson,
recruited
Calais Campbell for us, so kind of crazy, but not surprising. Honestly, not surprising. I mean, the town was always, lukewarm on Joe, and really, I thought he brought it on himself. Part of it was his personality, but part of it was his work ethic. I don't care. Yeah, maybe he showed up every day, but he didn't do anything extra. It was publicized that he didn't do anything extra. He told you he didn't do anything extra. So it was hard to get behind a guy when you have this kid who all he does is bust his ass. He's always working, always trying to improve, leading by example. So it's refreshing to see that because you're rooting for that guy to win, where this other guy, you're going, oh, man, hopefully he gets it done this time because it's 50-50,
Last football-related question. Do you think Joe Flacco is in the league this year?
I'll be honest with you, John. I was wrong by one season. I thought if we cut him, he'd retire. So look, he can talk that he loves football, he wants to. No, he don't. And if he does, he sure don't show it. And if he really did, then why didn't you work in the off season with your wide receivers and things? Why didn't you really do things to improve? He obviously loves the wife and kids. He's got a gang of them. He got like 4 or 5 kids? I thought he was going to take that $100 million he got from us and just kind of ride off into the sunset and go out on top instead of, going to Denver, and now, he's out. Now if he's coming back as a backup.
And don't forget, he failed his physical.
Yeah,
and nobody can
on the way out
administer a physical right now.
It's true.
So you're really taking a risk. Looking at the landscape of things, I think Philadelphia or Pittsburgh makes a lot of sense for him. But does he want that backup role? We don't know if he does or not. But both of those starters are known to get hurt a lot.
Yeah.
So
if he goes Philly, probably,
and
especially because he's close.
If he is talking down the organization, what better way to come back and play Baltimore than with the Steelers, right?
Yeah, oh, for sure. For sure. We see. I wonder if they would Tomlin go for that? You got Ben's coming back. Do you get Flacco? I guess Jameis would cost a lot more money, but, I want somebody that I know can step up and play for me. And look, Joe, especially at this point in his career, needs a lot of help. So if you can block and you can catch and you got a running back, he's your man. But if you don't have an O-line, we know here exclusively that it's bad, if he doesn't have an offensive line, especially once he starts to get hit, the feet start planning and he just kind of looks around and waits to get hit. So, and I'm thankful for what he did. He's the best quarterback that we've had to date. He did get us a Super Bowl. Probably should have had a second one if Lee Evans don't get that ball knocked out.
I don't think the second one happens if the first one does, though.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, it does change the dynamic in the locker room once you reach that goal.
Maybe Ray retires that year.
Yeah, that's true too. I mean, hey, look, as football fans, we're very fortunate here. We saw maybe the best left tackle of all time in Ogden. You saw maybe the best middle linebacker in Ray Lewis, maybe the best safety in Ed Reed, maybe the best, the guy that's redefining the quarterback position, maybe the best kicker of all time. Maybe, look, he's a Hall of Famer. Anybody says Yonda's not going to the Hall of Fame, you're crazy.
Yeah. The only thing that concerns me is Alan Faneca hasn't gone in yet.
Yeah, he'll get in. I think. Man, like, I mean, if Yonda absolutely deserves it, I mean, he's been probably the most dominant guard of his era. So
without a doubt,
I think the guy's earned it. So pretty amazing in our short run. I mean, what, 96?
25 years. It was 25 years this past week. So yeah. I mean, we're spoiled. 2 Super Bowls. We're in contention every single year. And then the one thing that I always appreciate about the organization is, for all accounts and purposes, the Baltimore Ravens have only had 2 head coaches. I know on paper it says 3, but one was a carryover.
Yep.
And that just speaks to, and you know this, any organization,
continuity.
Whether it's football, MMA, a restaurant, leadership has to start from the top down, and you got to be consistent and have continuity.
Yep.
Because, Harbaugh had a bad year doesn't mean you get rid of him. And I think that's why we're extremely fortunate, and we're following, we'll never want to admit this, the Pittsburgh Steelers model.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, success breeds success. If you see somebody who's successful, you want to examine what they're doing and try and replicate it. I mean, the league, just play-wise and scheme-wise, it's copycat league. If something works, you're gonna go and try to replicate that. So, look, the Steelers, we might hate them, but you have to respect them. It's a winning tradition, a winning culture. Tomlin, he's not my favorite guy, but he's a great coach.
But if he's your coach, you love him.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, it's like Hines Ward. You think, did we like him? Everybody wanted to punch him in his face, but if he was wearing purple, we would have loved him, because he's a physical, no bullshit player. So, it's always, they all hated Ray. I bet you if he was wearing black and gold, he'd have been, Jack, he's better than Jack Lambert. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man. I mean, it's we're fortunate, the success that they've had. It's looking bright, with Lamar. The defense was solid, but it's only improved so far, at least on paper. After the draft, we're really going to have a better picture. And then you know how it goes. If they still need somebody during camp, they'll wait for them last cuts and try to find somebody that can come in and fill a hole.
John, let's talk about your activism in the animal community. As tough as you are and as big as you are, and people that are watching this on Facebook and on YouTube can see, your stature's pretty impressive. You're really soft deep
Fat
inside.
ass is 280 right now, being stuck in the house.
Talk about, why Barks, why show your soft side, Miss Sandy. Talk about everybody, why you're so involved in it on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's look, everybody obviously knows I'm an animal guy. I always, like we were talking about earlier, the school's kind of a way to give back. This for me was, I thought was a way that I could contribute, like I could give back. The animals don't have a voice, so you're kind of able to speak for them. People that know me, could know me from the fighting stuff, could know me from the bodyguarding stuff. They might know me from being a knucklehead kid, that used to beat people up and stuff like that. So, you have an image of me. I mean, I look like a criminal, so it doesn't, I'm not the typical McDonough graduate, but, it's I think the maybe that juxtaposition makes people, it kind of gives a little more credence to what we're doing.
Sure.
And that's where Sandy was brilliant, because she's getting all these athletes and rock and roll people and guys that you wouldn't expect to show love and affection for animals. They just just did a shoot with my buddy Chemo out in Vegas with his Pomeranians. And, he's Slash's bodyguard. We work together with Motley Crue. A good friend of mine, 300-pound Samoan guy, and his dogs are 3 Pomeranians. He calls them his wolf pack. So I think it's a great thing. Sandy asked me to do it from the the very beginning. It was myself, Adam Jones, and Jarrett Johnson. The day they announced the campaign at City Hall, I actually spoke with Mayor, Stephanie was the mayor at the time, Rawlings Blake, and so I was asked to speak down City Hall. Got to do that. Got to throw out the first pitch with Tori. Tori and I went, and what was really cool, the kids were young then because this thing started quite a while ago. And Tori was down there playing catch with Ethan and Jake and and Jamie's kids. So they got a real kick out of that. But yeah, man, it was awesome. Go out and throw out the first pitch. Who grew up in Baltimore wouldn't be fantasized to go to Camden Yards and be able to throw out the first pitch. That was pretty cool. And that was in conjunction with Sandy with the soft side also does the Orioles calendar, which is a big fundraiser for them. So we had a booth there. We did the first pitch, got to interact with some of the fans. It was pretty cool stuff. And with Barks, Jen had asked me to become a board member, and I wasn't really interested. I said, nah, I don't know that I have time for that. And she goes, well, no, I'd like you to do it. I really think you'd be good. And I said, I just don't have the time. Like, what would you need me to do? And she goes, well, just do what you're doing now. And I said, well, I'll do that anyway. I don't need to be on the board. And she goes, no, I think if you were on the board, it would really help. And, so I wound up getting on the board. You get to do two, I think there were 2 3-year terms or something like that. And then you have to stop. So I just stopped last summer, and I'm still obviously active with them. But, I went and did it. And honestly, I'm glad I did, because I think the people that they started adding to the board were people that could really help the charity. Like Frank Remish, was a board member. And the thing that I thought that I brought to the table for them was awareness. Like, people I didn't really know what Barks was when they came and talked to me. So by being involved with it, by promoting it at the events, by getting on with people like you and talking about it, making people aware, it almost took on a life of its own, where I'm not lying. I could be out at a mall or something, and I have as many people say to me, thanks for what you did for you do for the animals, as I do that say, thanks for getting MMA legalized and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool when somebody tells you, hey, I went to Barks and adopted a dog because you, or like I met somebody that has a dog named, 2 people, my vet and another person I know from martial arts school. They got dogs named Rallo. So, so I'm having some effect out there.
That's great.
It's pretty cool.
Unfortunately, though, they had their biggest event, basically
man.
Their only event canceled because of what's going on. So I'm sure, myself, you, Frank, will get together and make some events and help them make up some of that income.
Yep.
Last thing, John.
And hey, anybody out there, if you are interested to help, that event was Paul Jeck Runway. John and myself kind of modeling the event where we walk animals down. John's a sponsor. I'm the co-chair, so we go out and raise money. It's a big, big fundraiser for Barks and Show Your Soft Side. So anybody that's able to donate, I know these times are tough. If you're financially not able, totally understand. But if you are, PaulJectRunway.org, and it's Paul, P-A-W, Jecht Runway, like the dog's Paul.
And we'll throw a link on the Facebook page as well for them to donate.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man. Because Jen,
and we'll have Sandy on soon.
Yeah, cool, good. Yeah, she's a trip, and yeah, I love Sandy. And Jen, literally, I throw him like 100 a month anyway. Just out of ground control. And she emailed me back and thanked me, and she had said, that right now it's tough. They're looking at possibly having to do some things down there. So anybody that's out there, these are 2 organizations that operate on a shoestring budget, and they just took a major hit. Mm-hmm. So if you can contribute, please do.
It's awesome. Last thing relates to what everybody's going through right now. I saw Conor McGregor tweeted out that, isolation and soft quarantine is not a bad thing. He referenced doing it many years ago and coming out a better person because of it. I think your mental capacity and obviously your physical capacity shows that you take care of yourself. What would you say to people that are listening? How can they come out of this physically and mentally, spiritually better than how they went into it?
Man, I would say first, and look, I don't know everybody's situation, so don't take this as gospel. But the first thing in my mind is like you can't worry about things you can't control. So like people hear me say it all the time. It is what it is. Um, you know, the problem's here, and now we have to deal with it. And we need to deal with it in the best way possible so that it's gone as quickly as possible and the world can get back to being normal. While you're home, like what I'm trying to do is get myself in order. Like in my office looks like a bomb hit it, so now I can try to, get things straight and get things done, work around the house that you've been putting off because you're busy trying to get those things done. You have time now in the house. Like, I got books I buy. I haven't even looked at them because when I would sit down and read a book. Now you have some time to sit down and read a book. Maybe like for myself, social media average. Like you're a social media freaking, whiz. You guys kill it. Myself, I don't even know how to use Twitter and Instagram hardly. So, now I'm looking at, trying to read some books on how to get better, at some of these things because this is the way the world's moving. So, I'm trying to do little self-improvement stuff, exercising at home. I do have some like kettlebells at the house and stuff like that. So I try to do some kettlebell routines to keep in shape and to keep a little bit of cardio. Also stretching, to keep yourself loose. Have Aerodyne at the house too. They're not super expensive. That's the bike with the handles for people that don't know. So that's another thing that you can do. Helping if you're in a position to, family, friends, that may need that kind of help. And, like the biggest thing I can also say is, I was telling you before about the video I saw, it's this guy, Asian Boss. If you do Asian Boss and COVID virus, it comes up and it's their, like South Korea's top guy, on this stuff. And he's explaining how they deal with the disease, why it's so low rate of infection over there. Social distancing is a big part of it. The people wearing masks if they're out in public was a big part of it. This is a disease that he was saying is it's a droplet disease. So it's not something you walk through the air and catch it. If somebody coughs, if somebody sneezes, if somebody has a sniffle and they wipe their nose, it's on their hand. And then you guys shake hands, now it's on you. Mm-hmm. You wipe your face. Touching face is like 90% of how it gets to you. So, the social distancing is important. But again, I'm on Trump's side on some of this stuff as well. The cure can't be worse than the problem. And this is a country we're not set to shut down for months. The backbone of this country, small business owners. And if you shut down small business owners for 2, 3, 4 months, they will not reopen.
Yeah.
And then those people who lost jobs they'll have no jobs to come back to, and we'll be in an incredible depression. So let's hope that all the travel bans and the social distancing and the fact that now we're ramping up masks and ramping up testing and some of these drugs like the malaria drug, hydroxychloroquine, and the Zithromax are now approved for use on these things. Let's just hope this stuff works, and that way we can get back to normal. I think April is, I always told my friends I thought we were going to be shut down through April, and then I thought May, they would start stepping things back up if for no other reason. Things can't stay closed,
yeah.
or it's going to be worse. Like it's not, and I don't mean virus-wise. I mean depression, suicide rates. I mean people who are going to be robbing and stealing to make good for their families. I mean, if this stuff continues, you're looking at business closures, job loss, home foreclosures. I mean, it could really just turn society into a mess.
Yeah.
So. Let's just keep our fingers crossed that, the things that we're doing, and I think they are. I mean, we see how this thing has moved in other countries. You learn from their mistakes. I thought we were kind of proactive here. I know the numbers are going up. First of all, we know China's lying about their numbers, so can't say our numbers have really surpassed them. But, we understand what's going on here. We understand how to treat it, so let's just do what we're supposed to do. Like Conor was saying, let's all pull together and fight together, and we'll come out on top, man. We just have to have faith in American ingenuity. Now that the FDA's backing off and Trump's allowing them to to go at this thing, I'm hoping that American ingenuity prevails once again.
Well, one of the positives of this crisis is the beginning of this podcast, and Dimitri makes that possible. So I just want to thank Dimitri again, our producer. He's working around the clock. I think he's texting me more than my fiance these days, actually, to put these episodes together. Thanks to you, John, for being here. I know you're busy. And thanks to everybody for listening. We'll keep pumping these out. Stay together, stay strong, and hopefully sooner rather than later, we're only dropping one episode a week or every other week, and we're all back to our busy lifestyles.
Yep. All right, brother. Thank you.